With internet pornography being, well, everywhere, this one question just keeps coming up. What's it actually doing to our brains? Now, look, there are a ton of strong opinions out there, right? But today, we're going to push all that noise aside. We're just going to look at what the science is beginning to tell us. Okay, let's dive in.
So, the big question we're really digging into is this. From a brain science perspective, can internet porn change your brain in the same way something like a drug addiction can? And to get a real answer, we have to go beyond just looking at the behavior. We have to actually peek inside at the neurology. And believe it or not, thanks to modern tech, we can actually do that now. Scientists don't have to just guess what's going on in our heads anymore. They can literally watch the brain in action as it happens. They've got these incredible tools like something called functional near-infrared spectroscopy, or fNIRS for short. What this tech does, in simple terms, is let researchers see which parts of the brain light up by tracking blood flow when someone is looking at certain things. It's like a real-time map of brain activity.
And one of the main places they're looking is the brain's reward system. Now, this isn't just one little spot. It's a whole network of structures that basically run the show when it comes to our motivation, our desires, and feeling pleasure. It's the same system that gets fired up whether you're eating a fantastic meal, winning a video game, or, in the case of addiction, taking a drug. A really big player in that whole system is the prefrontal cortex. You can think of this as your brain's CEO, or maybe the control center. It's the part that's in charge of making good decisions, thinking long-term, and, hitting the brakes when we need to. And this is a super important area because it's one that often gets hijacked in addiction. Okay, so scientists have the tools, and they know what parts of the brain to look at. So what happened when they compared the brain scans of people with internet pornography addiction to people with substance addictions? Well, the similarities were pretty shocking. When they started mapping out what the brain was doing, the signatures, as they call them, looked almost identical. You could see the same dopamine pathways lighting up, you saw changes in that critical prefrontal cortex, and you saw something called heightened cue reactivity. That's just a fancy way of saying that even a small reminder of the thing you're addicted to can trigger these massive cravings. Okay, this is where it gets really, really specific. We're not talking about some vague, oh, this kind of looks like that similarity. No way. Both of them activate the exact same core dopamine system. Both of them cause similar changes in the brain's control center. But check out that last row. This is the kicker. For a long time, scientists have known that a weak connection between the part of your brain that makes decisions, that's the DLPFC, and the part that forms habits, the caudate, is a classic sign of heroin addiction. Well, guess what? They found that exact same weekend connection in people with internet pornography addiction.
And this quote from a study really drives the point home. The researchers actually wrote that the brain patterns were strikingly similar to what they see in other major conditions like schizophrenia. Now, let's be super clear. This does not mean it causes schizophrenia. Not at all. What it does show is that the level of disruption happening to the brain's wiring is serious. It's on the same scale as what we see in these other major, well-understood disorders. It just highlights how deep these changes can go.
Which, of course, brings us to a really important question. What happens if you introduce these incredibly powerful things to a brain that's still, well, under construction? So let's talk about the impact on teenagers. Puberty usually gets going somewhere between the ages of 8 and 14, and this isn't just about bodies changing. This is one of the most intense periods of brain development a person goes through in their entire life, second only to when you were a tiny baby. During these years, the teenage brain is basically doing a massive rewiring job. You've got huge surges of hormones, a natural tendency to take more risks and be more impulsive, and a brain that is incredibly flexible and sensitive to new experiences. It's a sponge, soaking everything up. And this is where the concern comes in. If you take what scientists call a supernormal stimulus, something that's way more intense and available than anything we'd find in the natural world, and you introduce it to a brain that's in the middle of building its long-term wiring, well, you can end up creating some really powerful, really hard-to-break neural habits. So why does all of this brain science actually matter for us in the real world? It matters because it helps us shift the whole conversation away from judgment and shame and toward looking at this as a health issue. Because the potential consequences that researchers are seeing, they're pretty significant. We're talking about things that can affect how you think, cause withdrawal-like reactions when the person stops, and even lead to a reduced sexual response to a real-life partner because the brain has gotten used to that supernormal stimulus.
Seeing it through this brain science lens lets us reframe the whole thing. It tells us this isn't simply a matter of weak willpower or a moral problem. Instead, we can see it for what it might be, a behavioral health issue that's based on real, measurable changes inside the brain. And that shift in thinking, it is everything. Because once you see it that way, it opens the door to actual, effective treatments, like psychotherapy, that the science says can really help.
So we'll leave you with this last thought to chew on. The science is clear. Our brains are constantly being shaped and reshaped by our experiences. So if our digital lives have become this constant fire hose of stimulation and reward, what does that mean for the future of the human brain? That's a question we are only just starting to figure out.